ዶክተር ሳባ ዮሐንስ-ረዳ ናቸው። ዶክተር ሳባ ጨራለ እንደው አንድ ሶስት ነገር መጥቀስ ብችል በካልስቴት ሎንግ ቢች በሁለት ደረጃዎች በዳይሬክተርነት ያገለግሉና የሚያገለግሉ በተለይም ደግሞ ባለፉት 4 ዓመታት በእኛ ቦርድ ውስጥ በአባልነት የሚሳተፉ በዚህ ጉዳይ ላይ ከፍተኛ ጊዜያቸውንና ቁሳካላቸውን አጥፍተው የሚካፈሉ ውድ አባላችን ናቸው። የዛሬው ጥናታዊ የሆነ ንግግር ነው የሚያደርጉ እና በተለይ የኛና ከኛ በፊት የነበረው የጥላቻ ትውልድ ድበለው ይቅርታ አድርጉልኝና ራሴ ማለት ነው አልፎ አዲሱ ትውልድ የመጣ ስለሆነ በዛ ላይ የተመሰረተ ጥናት ነው ለእናንተ የሚያካፍሉት ዛሬ ማለት ነው። እንግዲህ ወደ ፖዲየሙ
በመጀመሪያ በጣም አመሰግናለሁ ለተሰጠኝ እድል። በእንግሊዘኛ ነው የኔ ፕሬዘንቴሽን እርግጠኛ ነኝ ሁላችንም እንግሊዘኛ ቋንቋችን ስለሆነ በዚህ በተሰደንበት ሀገር እድል ለተሰጠኝ አመሰግናለሁ። የኔ ፕሬዘንቴሽን መጀመሪያ ፓይለት አድርጌው ነበር የዛሬ 4 ዓመት እንደዚህ ተጋብዤ የዚህ የኢትዮጵያን እና ኤርትራን ፍሬንድሺፕ ፎረም ጠርተውኝ እና በቃ እኔ ባክግራውንድ ኤዱኬሽን ስለሆነ my educational background is in education, so educational researchers usually we have a tendency to want to do a little experiment. So my first experiment was with only 25 people. So out of that survey, the people said, okay, why don't you do a big scale survey? And then I said, okay. So that's how this whole thing started. Okay. So, you know, the topic is dreams and hopes for the future generation of Ethiopians and Eritreans. And I would have hoped we had more, the younger generation participants today, but it's okay because you all have kids and grandkids, nieces and nephews. That hopefully at a different time we can share this information. Yeah, if people are like me, I always want to know, okay, you know, what's your background, you know. I'm sure you say, those who know me, know me. Those who don't know me want to know, you know, what is she about, right? So I'll give you who I am, because, you know, I'm a product of my environment, and I'm sure we all are product of our environment. So I think I was born and raised in Ethiopia, Saba, from Eritrean parents. Both my parents came to Ethiopia. My mom was only 4. I think my dad was 14. So my grandparents were probably the most influential in terms of educating me about Eritrea. Or we have, I'm sure if you know, we have a lot of students that come from relatives from Asmara to go to Ethiopia University. So the summer that they spend time, at least 2 or 3 each summer, will come home, and that's all they tell us. And so I was quite aware of the war. I was quite aware, but disturbed the whole time. It wasn't something that it just bothered me a lot growing up. But I didn't do a whole lot with that information, because I lived in a neighborhood where everybody was the same. Ethiopians, Eritreans, you know, as a teenager, my best friends till today are Ethiopians. So among my friends, the topic never came. So I came to Italy first, and I wasn't one of those households where your parents at home say only speak Tigrinya. That was in our house. My grandmother tried, but we won. So Amharic was the dominant language, so I didn't speak Tigrinya until I left to go to Italy. And then when I landed there, everybody ridiculed me that you don't speak Tigrinya. Yeah, I don't speak Tigrinya. So that was not a good thing. So eventually I left. I didn't stay in Italy that long. In 1980, I moved to Maryland after I stayed here for a little bit, and 3 years maybe. And then I moved to California, and still predominantly have Ethiopian friends most of the time until I met my husband in 1985 when I moved to California. So that's my complete life change started, because he was 100% from Eritrea, never even seen Ethiopia, but we didn't even communicate well. People will visit and they would say, how do you talk? He told them sign language. So, one thing that worked for us was love back then. We can do it now again. It was the only thing that kept us going, is the love, okay? And I want you to remember this throughout this presentation. So, fast forward, we get married. I begged for one song, Mushirai. They said no, absolutely no. I pleaded, begged, no way, no Jose. So recently we've been married 29 years now, so I met one of his friends who was so against my Mushirai song. I asked him, I'm about to celebrate our 25th anniversary. He said, you want Mushirai the whole night? So just to tell you, ever since then, I'm busy raising kids, so it was easier for me to associate more with the Eritrean community because we wanted to teach our kids their culture. So, but I am still torn between two places, because I don't know, you can say, like our kids would say, my mom, I'm American, right? Which music do I dig the most? Amharic. So what am I going to do? Can I change that? No. Do I miss Ethiopia or do I miss Eritrea? No, I miss Ethiopia. I've never been there. I went there actually in 96 to show my kids. So I'm one of those people who has, if you are wondering what's my hidden agenda, is because I love both people. I want to be able to go both. When I retire, I want to be able to do things at both places. Is there something wrong? I don't think so, but that's just me. Okay, so I think I already said that. So my motivation for this is I love both. One day, whatever the issues are, I'm not a politician, but I want to leave a legacy behind. That way our kids and grandkids, great-grandkids can be proud of what we left behind. What we left so far is not impressive. So what's the goal of this study? I think my whole premise on this is to understand what the younger generation is thinking, is feeling, and what they want for the Ethiopians and Eritreans. What did we learn from the past? What is the impact of the war between Ethiopia and Eritrea for our youth? So I did a mixed study. The qualitative study was really an outcome of the comments. Originally, I only wanted to do a survey, 10-question survey, but then out of the survey came comments. So it ended up being a mixed study, which is a quantitative and a qualitative study. So the survey was administered using social media. It was distributed to 1,000 people, and the responses that we got was 235 responses. And then I want to thank Izana Tedros Atoanelis, kid who administered the survey for me. So did a great job. He compiled it and created the graphs for me. I only interpreted it. So as you can see, the age range, the bulk of the student, the people that responded are, you can see it is like from 23 to about 29, 30. That's the age group. So That's one survey. Were you born and raised in the U.S.? To my surprise, I thought it would be the other way around, but most were not born in the U.S. Only 36% born in the U.S. I think I can see that 64. Yeah, 64 born in abroad. So then I wrote this question, and I'll tell you an interesting comment that I received. Somebody caught my typo. He or she said, you should have made nations. So I remain corrected. This should have been nations. So you can see I believe we become a stronger nations if the Eritrean and the Ethiopian government could reach a peaceful agreement. So overwhelming, the response you can see is, if you combine strongly agree, it's almost 56 and 22, almost 80, 70%. So it's a good response. Neutral, a few. Second question was, the younger generation is more open and ready to work towards a common goal. Again, almost 70% say strongly agree. If you were born outside the US, please indicate where you were born. So I just gave you the bigger numbers. 157 responded, 60 were born in Ethiopia, that's the number, how many? 47 in Eritrea. The rest of them, a lot of them from Canada, Sudan, it's all over the map, actually. So both Eritrea and Ethiopia have gone through a lot for the past 25 years, and it's time to make peace. I think the majority, you can see, agree. The people of Eritrea and Ethiopia have common tradition, culture, value, etc. Again, overwhelming numbers, they agree. So you can see the blue is agree for those who are in the back. And then the orange is next to it. So I agree. I'm only focusing on the agreed and strongly agree because the overwhelming, there's a support for this significant statistics for the larger responses. So the main difference between the two countries is the following. We have, I broke it down as a political, cultural, leadership. I can read that one. It shows the highest is political. The next is leadership. The second one is history. So you can tell it's history is the, I think between history, political, and leadership are the ones that stand out. Okay, so this is my favorite question. I asked, I support marriage between Eritrean and Ethiopian, so overwhelming number, again, say 41 plus 30, agree? Yeah, thank you. And then neutral, I'm surprised about the neutral. I think those are the ones that maybe other cultures are going to snatch our kids from us, unfortunately. If many of Eritrean and Ethiopian, if I marry an Ethiopian or an Eritrean, my main concern is whether my parents will accept him or her. This one is interesting. Strongly agree. Yeah. So basically, they're not worried. Parents are okay. I hope you agree, right? You agree? I'll tell you. We have close family and friends. We used to have issues with this. Some people would say, no, I want my kids to stick with their own. But now things have changed because our kids are getting to that age and we're seeing things are not looking good. So everybody's saying, I can turn on the Abashadamu. Oh, look, that's the talk. No more discussion. I'm sure my parents have changed their views over these past 25 years about marrying an Eritrean Ethiopian will not even be an issue. Strongly agree, we have about 20 or so, 27%. And then this one is a little interesting because we have about 20% that disagree, about 50% think they disagree. Yeah, it's half and half. It's kind of split in half. Half agree, half disagree. This is the main one that I see such a big chunk of both sides. So we have some work to do. In 10 to 15 years' time, I see the future of both countries and people prospering and living in peace. Again, about 47% strongly agree and agree to combine. About neutral is again 33, because those are people unsure. And disagree is green and not that much. So still have work to do in this area. So this is a sample, which really is the part that I was saying is the qualitative piece of what I did. Is there were 53 responses, so I decided to just lump the common comments and the comments that seem to repeat over and over again. So I'm just going to read these quickly. Okay, I would love to work with Ethiopians more. I'm Eritrean, and I love the concept of an Ethiopian-Eritrean friendship convening. However, many Ethiopians seem to not be as interested in peace with Eritrea as much as unity with Eritrea, that is, Eritrea should equal Ethiopia. I have found that conceptualization of amicability as an erasure of my identity and my people's history sacrifices. The tension between the two countries is due to a skewed political history and border dispute. However, we share a beautiful culture and differences that are few and similar to that of Canada and the United States. I find it's our similar cultures that help me relate to Ethiopians and a common icebreaker when meeting people for the first time. I think we share something wonderful, and it's great to have that type of relation with more people. Another one, I really hope you don't try to impose the two. This is telling me, make sure you don't do this. I really hope you don't impose the two different countries, try to become one in your speech. The Eritrean people have fought long and hard to have our own independent country and will protect it at all costs. You see people who have never been to Ethiopia or Eritrea or visited in the past 40 years complain about one another. It's time we just think positive and move forward. My father fought in the war for Eritrea. His brother fought for Ethiopia. My grandmother is from Addis Ababa. My grandfather is from Mandafara. To choose one is to choose between my family, which they always told me not to do. You can call it wet or sabhi, but it doesn't change the food. Just like you call the people Ethiopian or Eritrean, it doesn't change the people themselves. We need to put politics aside and focus on prosperity of the region. The youth are the future and do not hate each other because of the past. If it needs to stay two countries, so be it. But we do share a strong historical and cultural connection as Habeshas, especially with Amharas, and so they are my brothers and sisters. I am of the belief that these two countries are stronger when they are not at war with each other. I don't propose they come together, but I do believe that each one of them being strong on their own would benefit from working together to better serve their people. From my observation, I would say yes for young Ethiopians, but hesitate to say yes for young Eritreans. This is probably because the history information passed down to us is very biased. Limitations for my study. I think one of the feedback that I received is that I should have separated, when I say young generation, I didn't think about the young generation born and raised here versus young generation who came from Eritrea. Is big, the thinking process is different. They're saying some are really hateful. So what their challenge is, it should be specified. I should specify that. Because some are being brainwashed, not like the comment that you saw earlier, who've never been to Eritrea, who've never been to Ethiopia, but have such a strong opinion both countries. Some of the survey questions were perceived as leading questions to answer a certain way, so I wasn't aware of that. So if I have to do this again, I will make it, it's not like guiding. My recommendation is to include literature review. Usually when you do a study, especially if I have to publish this, I needed to include literature review, but I don't even know where to begin. Honestly, I started, but then I got kind of overwhelmed because I read a lot of war stuff, and I don't like to read about a lot of war stuff. So maybe today some of you can give me some. I learned already quite a bit today, so I'm hoping to incorporate what I'm learning into my future literature review. A larger sample size would be given. It would be helpful, especially the age group. I need to broaden the age group. Besides social media, I think the data collection method can be improved a different way. Thank you. Any questions for me?
በጣም እግዚአብሔር ይስጥልን። እንግዲህ ጥናቱና የወደፊቱ ትውልድና አስተሳሰብ በመጠኑ ተረድታችኋል። ዶክተር ሳባ ያደረገችው ንግግር የወደፊቱን አቅጣጫ ይተልምልናል ማለት ነው።